Are you looking for an escape from manufactured truth wrapped in selfish agenda? Don't you just want to have a real and raw conversation, all masks and rules aside? That's what you're getting here at Titan Evolution Podcast. Get rid of all the nonsense information and discuss everything under the sun without filters. Listen to real stories of real people who will put your current perspectives to the test, guide you on living the life you truly want, and see everything free from judgment and pretenses. Time to get rid of those unhealthy environments and let your authentic self shine. Here are your hosts, Travis Johnson and Carol Carpenter.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Carol Carpenter, and this is my wonderful co-host, Travis Johnson. And we have a very special guest today on our show, Aaron Ellis. And Aaron is an accomplished musician and entrepreneur in the music industry with 15 gold and platinum records, 7 top 10 songs, and way too many awards to mention. From a high school dropout to an accomplished musician to now being a successful entrepreneurial coach. His goal is to teach each of us to live our passion, realizing it's not what we do, it's how we show up and flow through what we do. Thank you for joining us, Aaron.
Absolutely. Excited to be on.
You know, we talk so often that I sometimes forget just exactly how accomplished everyone in our circles are. Like you hear the bio and you're like I haven't heard that stuff in years. Like you forget that you just like are connected to the person and you're just going through life and you forget. Someone asked me yesterday to send them a bio and I'm looking at my stuff and I'm reading through it and I'm just like, wow, I guess I have done a lot. You forget those things because you're either in the moment or you're projecting into the future and you're not really sure, right? You just your mind is focused where it's focused and you forget all these other things.
Well, you're in the present, and
Yeah.
so the past is the past. And until you really have a chance to really look at the things you've done, step back and look, you have no idea. Like you go, wait a second, that's not me. Wait a second, it actually is. It's frightening.
It's a whole
good.
different. Yeah. We're scared good. That's what it is. We're scared good. Aaron, I gotta know, brother, what makes you a Titan?
Well, what is the definition of a Titan to you first, Travis?
No, this
it's
is your
whatever
definition.
it's your
I'd
definition.
have to Google.
Everyone has their own definition. These are the qualities that make you the way you are, and all the things we just listed as your accomplishments. That's the fruit of who you are.
Got it. Okay. So I've studied words all my life. That's a whole story and rabbit hole on itself. So I'm always like, what does Titan mean? And I didn't look it up before today. I know that that term's been used, or with some of the people I've worked with or studied with or been mentored by, I've been heard that they're Titans. So I guess if I were to answer that for myself, I am just me. And I've spent my life understanding what that means. Mm-hmm. And most people ask me, like, what's the key to your success? It's always insight into myself, constant, continuous, expanding insight into myself. And through that, I've expanded further outward. So I guess, I don't know if that makes me a Titan or not, but that's what comes to mind. So that's what you got.
Oh no, there really is. There really is. A lot of people, when I talk about this or they ask to be a guest on the show, I usually ask them what makes them a Titan. And you either get one or two responses, right? One is like they're not sure is one. I guess there's 3. One is they start listing out all the titles that they have. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I work at this job, I do this and that. And they talk about all the titles they've accumulated. And the people that I know that are really ready for the show have done a lot of personal work on their real internal journey, like you just spoke of. And when you ask them the question at what makes you a Titan, they automatically know it's the attributes of them, of who makes them, who they are. It's not some external thing, but it comes from within. And when you operate as yourself, and you're a fantastic example of this, when you operate as yourself, everything lines up. Everything's in alignment. The people that are not meant to be in your life, even though if they've been there for 10, 20, 30 years, they fade away because they're not aligned with who you are. They never were in the first place, but for some reason, we hold on to those old relationships like somehow that's going to make us better or it means something. And when we're actually operating as ourselves, you can do anything that you were meant to do, you're able to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting you said that. One of the things that we've heard dudes probably heard me say it's not what we do. And Carol even said that's how we show up and flow through what we do. And when we fully understand that, we realize we're always on purpose. Purpose isn't in an action. It's in how we're showing up and flowing through those actions. And you could say, like, when you find an internal why, that's not an external why, not a result you're seeking, which a lot of people utilize as their why, that could be motivating, but it's not going to inspire them, right? It might seem like inspiration at first, but honestly, it's when you truly understand who you are, which is ever expanding and ever changing and ever growing, right? Or you could say evolving, or however you want to phrase it. And you're constantly stepping into that, you're showing up and flowing differently.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the accomplishments are just like the people in your life and not in your life, it's the same with accomplishments. It's no different than saying somebody has gained weight because of how they showed up and flowed through health and nutrition. The result they want might motivated to lose weight. But if they go internal and look at the essence of what they want rather than the imagery that they're seeking, and they cultivate that essence, then everything they're seeking just comes to them. It just naturally happens.
Yeah, it's the law of attraction, without a doubt. I think most people are searching for who they actually are. They haven't identified who they actually are. And that's a great deal of the discontent people feel. And that's the reason why they have depression, or they have anxiety, or any of those issues, is they don't know who they are yet. And they haven't done the work to find that person they were always meant to be.
Absolutely. And it's a combination, I believe, of that and all the things that we've onboarded as truth without really challenging what's being said. Someone says, that's just the way it is. And you're like, okay, like that's just the way it is. And whatever that thing was, if we go through our life and that thing remains unchallenged as being true or untrue, you get stuck in this loop of just falling in love with it. I mean, how many people know that girl that they have in their circle is just like, I don't know why I keep ending up with all these terrible guys. Well, why on earth you keep repeating the same lesson you've been given? Did you not learn the lesson yet? Did you not realize? Well, I was told very young that I'm just this way. Well, why on earth do you still believe that? Because if you still believe that, you're going to operate that way. You're going to keep attracting all of these douchebags, and you're going to wonder why it's happening to you. It's happening to you because you believe it to be true. And when people don't have their beliefs, feelings, thoughts, and actions aligned the way they want to, they're going to keep continuing to do the action that doesn't align with who they really want to be.
Very, very true. That's a good way to put it. And it reminds me, like, I also would say that it's not what we think, it's how we show up and flow through our thoughts. It's not the words we speak, it's how we show up and flow through those words. And I've studied the brain like extensively for the last 4 years, and there's an effect that your thoughts have on your central nervous system, which creates a feeling in the visceral body, right? So part of what I've learned from my own personal freedom is basically dissecting that stuff, pulling it apart, analyzing it in order to synthesize, because everything is connected. So it's not about getting away from something. It's about maybe getting away to gain perspective, to be able to bring it back full circle, right? And I was talking to somebody about this the other day about, they've said, I failed so many times. I failed so many times. I'm like, so when I look at that, I look at success and failure as synonyms. And what I mean by that is it's a result, and the result that people don't like, they call failure. The result they do like, they call success, but it's still a result. So when you dive down and you go to the essence of what they're talking about, these words have created a reaction in the central nervous system, which creates a feeling in the body that makes them want to avoid it. It's not comfortable, right? And if you can shift that by bringing awareness to that and realize that you can say failure to me, and I could give you examples. I can say what worked and what didn't work. Same feeling in my body as if I say what succeeded and what failed. Same feeling in my body if I said, where did I succeed and where did I fail? Same exact feeling in my body if I were to say, where am I a success and where am I a failure? It means the exact same thing to me, because I've done the work on understanding those words and how they affect my body, and they just mean the same thing. We create absolute meaning around things, or it's created for us by default, you could say, by our upbringing and our circumstances. And freedom to me personally is becoming aware of that and then choosing to change it and choosing to reprogram the brain around it, which reprograms the central nervous system and how you feel.
And of course, that it takes work. It's recognizing it and identifying it and then doing the work to change that, because everything we do in life is about choices. Choices have consequences, and it can be good or bad. And I think language is very important in how we speak to ourselves, because it can affect everything we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm right now 1 year past my last day in naval service. It's my 1 year anniversary of the last time I put on a uniform. And I went through a little exercise yesterday. No, not like at the gym exercise, like went through a process. I obviously haven't been going to the gym. Um, someone I missed my retirement. We had a lot going on at this time last year, and just the way it worked out, I didn't actually have a ceremony. So part of me kind of feels like that's kind of like a something that's open, that's still kind of like not yet closed. And I'm going through this exercise, and I actually recorded like a retirement speech. Just did it on my camera here, nothing fancy. I didn't send it out to anybody. But there's some of those things that looking back through, really understanding who you are, and it's impossible to read the label when you're inside the box. And when I was a younger man, early to mid 20s, I was a jackass. I was. I thought everything I said was hilarious and people were laughing, and I thought, they just loved who I was. But the fruit wasn't there. Like, if I invite someone out, they always had plans. I didn't realize that I was the jackass. There was someone that checked in, and he was running his mouth and this, that, and the other. I was like, oh my God, like, this guy, who does he think he is? Like, he can't do that. And then someone says, hey, you're twins. It's like you're the same person. And I didn't
Oh gosh.
realize, yeah, I didn't realize that that's how everyone else saw me. And when I dissected who it was, that was the time that I learned that you're the average of the 5 closest people you hang around. And I took a little evaluation of my life and say, who am I actually hanging around? And I was hanging around the people that weren't doing too hot in their career, that were having marital problems, that their mouth and their ego was running their life. And I didn't know the right things to say. So I just chose to basically not talk in public if I didn't have to. Like, if it wasn't, I didn't know the good things to say, but I knew what the bad things were. And that's about all that was on my mind. And I swapped them out for people that were pursuing a better career, that were going to college, taking care of their families, taking care of their faith, really being. And as soon as I started doing that, the transformation was immediate, because those things that came up were now the fruit of these people that were really doing the great things in their life. And so many times we don't get that perspective, or if we do get it, we push it away and say, no, that's not true, that's not an accurate assessment of me. And I was pretty fortunate to uncover that in myself as one of the things that I was able to make a major change on, because the guy from like 15 or so years ago, like, he wouldn't be the guy on this call, because he wouldn't have been able to do this.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So much of who we are as people, we have to uncover it layer by layer, piece by piece. And if you heard layers and we're thinking Shrek, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Ogres are like onions. No, they're like cakes. No, the onions. Everyone likes cake. No. Aaron, you got into the music industry really early. That was something that seems that you were imbued with, that kind of knowledge in that area. How did that all happen?
So it ties into another thing, like you said in the beginning, things that people don't necessarily know about you. I think people know about this to a degree, but I was diagnosed autistic when I was a kid. And my mother was a developmental psychologist professor. So she didn't tell me. I wasn't told that I had this limitation, which they never thought of it that way. I think it's a superpower, honestly. But there's been some funny, humorous things that how it's played out in my life. But that's the reason why I asked the word about Titan. You know what I mean? Because I'll look in the dictionary these days. I'm like, this person just used this word, and there's not even a variation in the dictionary for what they just said, right? So I resonated to music very, very quickly and very easily. And my mom will tell you that I was singing full songs before I was a year old, before I could articulate a full sentence, right? And I just loved music. I don't know how to really explain it in a way that other than those things that you just feel a resonance to, you just feel like it's part of you, like it's an extension of you, and it's constantly drawing you to it. And so when kids were playing outside, I was wanting to listen to music. My brother and sister are 4 years older than me, so I was exposed to a lot of their music, right? And which exposed me to different genres of music that I probably wouldn't have been listening to at the age I was, right? At 6 years old, I probably wouldn't have been listening to hard rock bands like my brother was and stuff, right? So I just, it was a refuge for me. It was a calming thing for me that my mom used for calming me when I was overstimulated to make me feel better. And it just evolved from there to where I wanted a guitar. I wanted to play piano. I never got into video games. I just wanted to play music. I'd sit for hours. And my parents would have to get me out of my room to get me outside and do stuff because I would listen to music for hours. I'd lay on the floor with speakers on the other side of my pillow and just listen to music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I started, I had to play piano before I was allowed to play guitar. That was the rule in the house. I'm thankful they did that now, right? But I wanted to play guitar so bad. And then my brother got a guitar for Christmas. He became a drummer. I picked up the guitar and I just started playing. Now he was a drummer in Seattle. So he was in that music scene a little obviously earlier than I was, but it brought me into it, or easier for me to get into it. So I started out as a guitar player. And through that, I started just being able to play gigs. Now, I also kind of developed quicker. So at like 13 years old, I was 5'10", 180 pounds, had a little bit of chest hair, and I could grow a mustache. Right? So I could play in bars at that age, right? And nobody knew how old I
It was way different back then.
I've only been able to grow a mustache for like the past year. And if you've seen it in person, it's not even that great. And I'm in my 40s. Like at 13, you had like a no shit mustache.
Yeah, but you know what? Back then it was way different. You could like, if you looked the part, you could get into a bar. And if not, I hate to say it, but it was really easy to get a fake ID. Super easy to get it.
I got to tell you, I was an entrepreneur from the start. Okay? So not just the fact that I took the cocktail swords to school in kindergarten out of my parents' liquor cabinet and sold them for $0.25 each. And we would
oh my God, Aaron.
But I know, and I guess I know that my ethics and my morals have expanded, right? I stole those. But the other thing is I used to do homework for people all through elementary school. But when I was 13, I was buying alcohol for people and selling it back to them. A 6-pack of beer I'd make $20 on. I didn't have a fake ID, but I just had this way of doing things and this confidence that I don't mind telling this to the world. This is me, right? We're going all bare.
We're going there. We're going
I would
there.
literally like, well, Aaron, can you get us some liquor? Can you get some vodka and some Jack Daniels? I'm like, sure. So the liquor store, I'd go up there and we'd hang out in this area, and I'd go to the liquor store after it was closed. Through the window, I'd figure out where the Jack was, where the vodka was. And let's say, Carol, you were working up. I'd call there earlier in the day. Hi, this is Carol calling. Hang up. Hour later, walk in, Carol, how you been? Walk straight over to what I wanted to buy, bring it over the counter as if I'd been there over and over and over again. Not like, is she gonna watch me? Here you go. I literally knew where to go, knew your name, and I was buying alcohol and selling it for people. So a little bit of a segue there, but I've been on.
Here we go.
The funny thing about that, though,
promoting alcoholism at a young age.
I think the funny or peculiar part of that is usually something that people don't know about me or they're shocked by is I had buffets of drugs in front of me from 15 years old.
Oh, right? Yeah. Like in the music scene. Oh, holy cow.
Never even smoked a joint, let alone a cigarette. And I didn't have a drink of beer or alcohol until I was 23.
Oh, wow. So
I didn't Look at you, Aaron. Processes. I didn't want it. I loved my life. I loved being present when I was doing. Granted, there was also the peripheral effect of seeing people wake up in pools of stuff. And I don't want to do that. Right. But I also just didn't want it. I just didn't, I don't know. It didn't, and I think part of that is my autistic brain. Part of it was, and don't get me wrong, my parents were not happy with, did not love my career choice of music. They were both educators. My mom was a college professor, for God's sake, right?
Yeah.
So yes, they empowered me, but they also didn't empower me in that sense. But you could say that I just was kind of just living what I wanted to do without any kind of like, why can't I do this? It was like, to me, it's like, well, of course I can do it. Why can't I do this? What do you mean I can't do this?
But don't you think entrepreneurs are the original rebels? I mean, we're the ones where people say no and we're like, aha, F you, watch me, or you can't do that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Watch me. Let's see what happens,
The funny way this played out though with my brain though, and this is why with music, like, why can't I do this? Why not? I have the desire to do it. Let's do it. I can't remember what grade it was, but my mom was called in because in my in language arts class, right? I did something and the teacher said, you can't do that. Mm-mm. And my response, not being a smart ass or anything, was like, but you just saw me do it. How can you say I can't do it? You literally just watched me do it. Of course I'm capable of doing it. Sent me the principal's office, right?
You challenge authority.
My brain still works that way though. I still hear literally, and I'm able to process it really quickly, but still have them. I walked around with these little dictionaries, little thesauruses, and books of idioms all my life from my mom, looking stuff up. Now it's my phone, of course. I can do it on my phone.
Isn't
because
Google
of that,
wonderful?
I don't question things. I haven't questioned my desires to do stuff. So the funny thing is I've had to kind of live reverse in a sense. I don't like, what do you dream of? I don't know. Cause I don't really, it's never been a separation, like a one day if only for me.
You know, it's
always just kind of been
interesting
part of how I
because
am.
you talk about having Asperger's, autism, right?
It was
So,
autism, then it was Asperger's. Now I'm just on the spectrum.
right,
Things
right.
don't-
Well, look, I mean, honestly, if you look at entrepreneurs and you take it, you know, on a lower level, if you look back and peel back, you know, these people, they are, you know, on the spectrum, so to speak. But my son is high functioning Asperger's. He was diagnosed with ADHD and very much a focused person. So when we're talking about the stories of all you wanted to do was play music, all he wanted to do was like sit down and put together puzzles that everybody else couldn't figure out, that were 3D puzzles. And you couldn't peel him away from it. So he's still, to this day, if it's something that he loves to do, he'll do it, but like he'll tune everybody out. And then if it's something he doesn't want to do, oh, forget about it. It's like, don't even. And I mean, when I talk about my son, he's 27 years old. He's still like that, you know?
Yep.
It's
So that's
interesting
how I got into music. That's in a nutshell how it kind of happened.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you really just were keyed in on, something that just made sense to you right away.
Yeah.
It's I love how you talked about talked about, not did. I love how you talked about buying alcohol in the liquor store,
Yeah.
because so many times this is a key to unlock this for a lot of people. And yeah, probably can't condone going to get alcohol underage, right? I'm not going to condone that. But you walked in with confidence and purpose, and people just went with it.
Mm-hmm.
I love this so often. So in the Navy, you have these all these qualifications that you have to get, and all of them have some kind of a different process. Some you have to go to special school, some you got to sign off like an OJT, on the job training, and some of these have oral review boards. And when you do this oral review board, you have all the experts on the panel, and they're asking you all these different questions based on the knowledge you've gained. And one of the biggest factors is, if you're going to pass this, where's your confidence level? Like, do they believe that you're going to be able to do the job, whatever the job is? And I learned really early that I might not have been able to be confident in the thing, whatever they were really talking about, but I could be confident in the words that I chose to speak. And when I got a little bit better at it, my goal was to have them, if I was the wrongest answer that they've ever heard in their life, I was going to say it with the most confidence that they would be questioning whether or not they know what the hell they're doing. That was the level of confidence that I was projecting through this stuff. And when you can do that, when you can get other people to question their own stance or their own knowledge, I'm not saying this is good, bad, or indifferent, but when you can just tap into that confidence and be that part of you and be that part of yourself and show up that way, a lot of things just kind of happen to go your way. And it's just so much easier to do life as a confident person, whether or not you believe in yourself. I'm not talking about that. Just, this is what I'm doing. And then you go and do it. And people just get out of your way and let you do it.
I think that really plays into my whole, it's not what we do, it's how we show up and flow through what we do. Like I'm definitely live the whole entrepreneurial thing, say yes and figure out how later. You know what I mean? I'll just say yes, because I'm confident in myself. I know my own level of skills, meaning the essence of what I'm going to do. I can do it anywhere. The same rules and laws pretty much apply in any industry. They really do. Now, you might need specialized knowledge in certain areas, but how you gain that specialized knowledge is the same way that I gained specialized knowledge in music. I studied, I practiced, I worked on it. I had desire and intention, and there it is. Right. So you're right. It's I think it's funny that you said that, where you say it so confidently that, I spoke at eBay. You guys remember eBay when it was up in Eastgate? Carol, I'm pointing at you because I grew up in Bellevue, Renton. So it was an Eastgate.
Oh, no way. Really? I know that.
Yeah, originally,
oh, okay.
There's a whole lot of things there.
Yeah.
And
well,
because of Paul Allen, who I was mentored by, he got me basically into speak, where I still do this. I speak on culture. right? Which is about the connection between the personal and the professional. So I remember going in and sitting down with the head guy. I don't remember he was a C-class guy, and he's asking me some questions. And he's like, so Aaron, what's your education? And I'm like, well, what do you mean by education? It's like, well, what's your degrees? I'm like, oh, I dropped out of high school at 16. And I just sat there. Okay. Every question I asked him, or he asked me, I basically answered it in a way that would like make me not be able to do the job. Right. Mm-hmm. And he let me do it. Part of it was because of the recommendation. Right. But afterwards, I'm like, what made you say yes? He's like, man, you literally failed every question I had for you to be able to, for me to say yes. And I was just completely curious what the heck you were going to come in and teach.
Oh, that's hysterical.
It's because it's like, oh, I dropped out of high school. Is that what you mean by education? Yeah, I dropped out of high school.
Yeah, but you're assuming that degree somehow gives you credibility, you know, just because you have a degree. You know what I learned? And this was really interesting. So I've been kind of on the hunt for a new financial advisor. Right. And so I have my investments with somebody, and I started doing some research, asked some people for referrals, and I spoke to this individual, and it was really interesting. He goes, Carol, do you know how easy it is to become a financial advisor? And I said, no. And he goes, oh yeah, all you have to do is take a 6-hour exam and you pass. And if you pass it with a C, you can literally become a financial advisor and handle other people's money. And I was just sitting there going, no freaking way, no freaking way. And I sit there and I think about, if it takes so little to become an advisor, and I guess the reason it is so easy is their lifespan within the industry is typically an average of 5 years. Okay. So that's why they have to get them in and try to train them and make them effective. But just think about who's handling your money. It's one of those frightening things. So when you talk about education and having a degree, having a certification, having those things, really it means nothing unless you can bring results.
Yeah, those little letters
in line with. Oh, go ahead, Travis.
All those little letters at the end of your name don't mean a whole lot if you can't do the thing that needs to be done. Right. And no amount of credentials are going to disqualify you if you know exactly how to do it. You know, we have there's designated leaders and there's like official leaders. There's ones that have the degrees, and it makes sense. Like when we go out and fly and we're all over the place, like everyone has their specific qualifications, but you get in the van from the airfield and you go out and something happens. It doesn't matter what is on your collar or how much you're getting paid. Someone in that van is going to be a better expert at being a mechanic than you are. So the leadership hierarchy is good for some things. But when you get down to that specified knowledge, that thing that really matters, what are the chances the person with the higher rank is also going to have the high knowledge in that other thing? It almost never happens. And how often do we disqualify people based on some letters after their name or degree on the wall or some award on the back? You know, like we just
are you just pointing at yourself?
I'm pointing at my the Veteran Podcast Awards here. Like that's all great and dandy that I have this, but if I can't do what you need in the podcast game, well, it doesn't really matter that I have this award or not.
Exactly. It's street smarts versus school smarts, you know, and sometimes street smarts trumps school smarts, man.
Every day of the week.
Back to what you said, Travis, like if somebody has that confidence, like it's not going to give them longevity. Just like if somebody is good at sales, but they're good at making a sale, but not really creating a customer or loyalty. They got to be able to back it up, right? They got to be able to follow through and have that integrity, meaning that, you know, what they're saying, what they're doing, what they're thinking is all speaking the same message. So if they're able to confidently speak it, even if it's the entrepreneurial way of say yes and then figure it out later, you still got to figure it out later.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You got to be able to.
You got to deliver the goods.
Yeah. Congrats on the sale. How many people re-upped with you when their time was done? How many people stayed on? How many of those people have re-upped time and again and will give you fantastic recommendation? Financial planners. Oh, I've got 2 billion assets under management. Great. Whoopity-doo. How many people did you take from 6 figures to 7 figures or more?
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
great that you have assets under management. It's great that you drive a yacht. How many of your clients are now driving yachts because of your fantastic decisions? That's what I want to
Yeah.
know.
Well, what really
Yeah.
kills me about all that whole industry is, they make a percentage off
Mhm.
managing your portfolio, but the portfolio that they manage is based on a static, very antiquated type of method. And instead of being active in helping you manage your money, they don't. And I find that really insulting, frustrating, as somebody that works hard and is expecting that person who's the, expert to be managing it correctly,
Well, you know why they call them brokers, right? They get rich while you get broker.
Oh my goodness.
That's great. You've got a fancy car, but what are you going to do
Yeah,
for me?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aaron, in all of your travels and all the places you've been, what did you find around this world that just was a complete shock to you, completely different than anything that you'd see or what you were expecting?
That the US is the least free country I've ever seen out of 50
Mm,
I've been to.
Ooh, that
And what I
sounds like,
mean by that is
yeah.
internal freedom, peace of mind freedom. I'm not talking about the freedom to pursue your own religion or the freedom to whatever, the freedoms that we are listed out as part of the US. I'm talking about freedom of just being free and happy and joyous and experiencing fulfillment. It seems like it's the least prevalent in the US.
yeah, but do
That's
you
what
think that is, do you think that's due to, the way we're managed, or do you think that's the discontent comes internally from just individuals? And
I
because
think it's
people tend to be negative, they pool together and there's a lot more negativity being spread than being positive.
right. So it's about the exposure to that. It's the argument of nature versus nurture. It's definitely nurture, meaning what we've been exposed to and the ability to be exposed to so much, right? So
Mm,
for an example, like I've been down to Costa Rica a few times, and one of the things I love to do is just get in a car and go down dirt roads and till I find these crazy little villages, right? And I remember spending time in this one village a few years ago when I went down there and just spending the day there and playing with these kids that are friggin' kicking a can around like an old coffee can that's rusted. They're having a ball. Not a single TV in the place, not even electricity or plumbing. And they're so happy. Like
mhm.
you could see it in their eyes. They were truly happy. So there's less exposure, right? Or in America, I don't know what the statistic now, but years, handful of years ago, I found out that we were the only country that has direct to consumer marketing for medications.
Yeah.
Only country that now there's a couple of them that do that, but no other countries have these lady running through a field saying, "Do you want to feel better about your life?" And butterflies, you know what I mean? They don't have that stuff. Right. So you're right in saying it that there's so much exposure that creates that discontent, but it also creates confusion. It
Yeah.
creates what I call false identities, where people start to identify with what they do rather than who and what they are, which they get lost in rather than how they show up and flow through what they do and refining that and refining themselves. They're constantly looking for the solutions or the answer, the savior outside of themselves.
Yeah, they always think the grass is greener on the other side, but it
Yeah.
really isn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of reasons for that, right? One is if the grass is greener somewhere else, maybe you should stay home and water your lawn, or or maybe the grass is greener over there because you're not over there fucking it up.
Yep. It's a good way to look at it. Yep.
Yeah.
When there's been a lot in this country, a lot of discontent over different races and how we show up. And we had the riots a few years ago, and we had some horrendous things happen with the police force and Americans. And it kills me. And I'm just so confused by it because I'm in a cul-de-sac. We're in a neighborhood. And as I'm watching these reports on TV, I'm sitting outside and watching these kids play basketball. And it's one of those, adjustable height hoops at the end of someone's driveway. And there's two distinct groups. There's big kids and then there's little kids. There's some girls talking about the cute boys and the thing, and then the kids are just running around crazy. And how it worked is like the big kids would take a shot and they'd play until the ball like bounced away. And when the ball bounced away, the little kids would go take their little mini basketball and they would get in there. And the big kids, without doing anything, would just sit and wait for a couple of moments until their basketball rolled away and they switched. And all of the kids, all of the genders, all the different races were just living in harmony. And I think that's how we are until we're somehow convinced that the differences that we can see somehow fucking matter. And somehow a difference in how someone appears is the reason that your life is so terrible. They're not imbued with that, but somehow we've convinced them as a people that they're wrong, different, worse, awful, whatever the thing is, some kind of victimhood and pointing fingers over the fact that we just look a little differently. And that's when I really started to just turn the damn TV off because it wasn't reflecting the life that I saw before me. It didn't make any sense. Why is it that we convince our children all these terrible things are someone else's fault?
I love differences in people. I think that's what makes us unique. And that's why I love talking to so many people is, it's like, how did you get there? And I like to have a conversation to find out what they could have done differently that I haven't done. Like, I love differences. And I like my own relationship with my boyfriend. We talked a lot about, what his strengths and weaknesses are, what my strengths and weaknesses are. And we found that there's this beautiful harmony because in our differences, I cover his blind spots, he covers mine. And it's just, I love differences. So I just don't understand what drives people to think differences are quote unquote bad.
Yeah.
Well, here it is. This is such a cool topic, right? It has to do with false identities and seeking outside of ourselves for our recognition, for our self-worth, for who we are, and rather than within ourselves. And I want you to walk with me for a second, realizing that everything in life is connected. Everything is connected. Travis talked about the synchronicities and how 4 seconds later saved his life. He's recorded how many times, you know what I mean? Everything is connected, right? So with that, if we truly understood that, we would all basically show up in life understanding that we're exactly who we need and exactly who everybody else needs. Right. We would own who we are, our gifts, our talents. Right. And we would, as some of the gurus say, we would focus on our strengths, and who gives a crap about our weaknesses? Because ultimately your weaknesses become your strengths when you remember we're all connected. And therefore, if somebody came to me, this is where it's gotten to in my brain. I understand the connection. So if somebody says, hey, Aaron, can you help me out with a podcast? Do you know how to help me out with the podcast? Yeah, you bet I do. Of course I do. Meet Travis.
Right?
You know what I mean? Do you know how to do this? Yeah, I know how to do that. Meet Carol. Hey, Aaron, you know how to race a street bike? Yeah, man, I know exactly how to do that. Go talk to Carol. But most people think they can't say I know how to do that unless they alone know how to do it. But when you think about how life is connected, you think the greatest minds in the world, and I'll paraphrase Henry Ford. I know it's not exact, but he's like, I'm not the smartest guy. I just surround myself with the smartest people. He knew what I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
When we realize that and we own who we are, we understand that what makes our weaknesses strong is that we're a team. We're all connected and we reach, but because of our identities and feeling we have to be more than, and we can't be wrong, and we can't look stupid, we can't look bad, worrying about what people think about what we said, right? That has to be owned within yourself. And one thing I've learned is when people say, I don't care what people think, that's the first sign that they care.
Oh, that's bull. Yeah.
If you didn't care, you wouldn't even have the thought to not care. So this kind of segues into how to own who you are. And ultimately, I remember somebody bringing up to me recently about what it means to be beyond reproach, right? So I went and dove in the dictionaries and stuff and was reading about that and stuff. And what it comes down to is, it doesn't come down to having everybody perceive you a certain way. It comes down to how you perceive yourself and being okay with that, and being not okay, that's the wrong word, being centered in that and grounded in that, knowing that there's going to be misunderstandings, knowing there's always more that we don't know, always more that we don't know, and a vast ocean, right? So I was looking at that, I'm like, oh, so that has to do with insight into the self. Again, everything comes back to what's within.
But that means you need to do the work to be really, confident about the person that you are.
Always.
Most people haven't. And again, that goes back to the reason why people are, struggling and they have issues with depression and anxiety, because they're in that search, but they really haven't done the inner work yet to become confident.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
You see that America's been wrapped up in identity politics for the past couple of decades. And the reason that it's so successful as a divisive tool is if you can have an opinion and you can onboard it into your being and create it as your identity, and then they can say that the other side is attacking not an idea, but they're attacking you personally because that's part of your identity. They can keep us distracted just long enough for us to get convinced that somehow we're not all magical beings. Like somehow we're not all connected. Somehow we're not all families. I know all of us on the Zoom right now have traveled all over the world. And I know that I went to the Middle East for a year, and I was a little worried about how I might be received over there. And I was out for a walk, and I was sitting in a park because, in the Middle East, they have parks. And I was shocked to find, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's families over there too. There's families. They have kids that run around and play, and moms and dads that want the best thing for their kids, and the kids squabble and fight. And it's the same everywhere. Why do we allow society, the news, the media, whoever you want to, why do we allow these people power over our lives to try to convince us that we don't all just want the best for ourselves and each other? They convince us that somehow some of these people are big groups of enemies trying to come after us, when really they're just trying to distract us.
Yeah. We are programmed out of the gate with imagery rather than essence, falling away from essence, and what we are is essence. So what I mean by that is what you just said. They create these false identities in our mind. But in essence, when you think from essence, you can always be empathetic. But there's been all these even sayings and this destination thinking that's saying you can't relate to other people because you haven't gone through what they've gone through. Yes, you have, in essence. You might not have done the same things. Now let's step out for another example. I've skydived. I've friggin' taken my jet ski as fast as I could trying to get myself thrown up, but I've never gone around a motocross track on a motorcycle. But I know what it feels like in essence to feel that adrenaline and to have to make a decision without thinking about making a decision, right? So in essence, I can relate to Carol, even though I've never been on a street bike like that, right? It's the same in anything else. Most people struggle with identity crisis. They struggle with self-confidence issues, with self-worth issues, and it plays out in all these ways that we see. So when you understand the essence and the empathy, you can relate to anybody because we've all had those issues. In imagery, yes, they've been different, right?
Just different degrees too. I mean, it's absolutely 100% true. I mean, you don't have to ride a motorcycle to understand what it feels like to have the wind blow in your hair, right? Mm-hmm. And you can relate better than Travis.
What are you talking about? I get this gorgeous mane here.
That's called wind drag, honey.
Just doesn't get it as messy as y'all's hair. That's I think
it's
you're jealous.
I get the tangled mess. Yes, yes. It's horrible. But yeah, I 100%. And just because you don't experience the same exact things doesn't mean you can't understand to some degree what that feels like. And if people would just relate to each other that way, I think there'd be so much more empathy and compassion in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree. And there's nothing wrong with differences. Like let me bring up the term namaste. So when you think about that term, in essence, it means the soul in me bows and honors the soul in you. I meet you where we're both the same, which means prior to gender, prior to color of skin, prior to nationality, traditions, prior to political views, prior to how much money you make, prior to religious beliefs, prior to whether you eat pineapple on pizza, and I do, stuff. It's before that, right? Yeah. But we get fixed. That's the essence. We get fixated on the imagery and we create our identity around the imagery, right? And then when somebody attacks the imagery, or we think it's being attacked, like Travis said, we think we're being attacked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we're not. Just like I can say, and this is on a deeper level, I can say your thoughts, my thoughts shows the owner and the owned. They're not one and the same, but people become their thoughts, the words, the identities, and then that's the entity walking around, you could say, which is, you could call it the ego, or synonymously, it's just the subconscious mind and has been programmed. All it is, which we call the personality. Right. So you're right. So many people are doing this. So the question is, how do we help? You know, that's what I always think. And I always go back. It starts with insight into myself, consistent, constant insight into myself. It has to, because whenever I get to a place where there's an obstacle externally, it's because it's time to go within and expand further within. And then I just naturally expand externally. Right?
Yeah. It's so much easier though when you go in, because you can get some perspective too. When you're right there, you can't be objective at all, because you're whatever you're up against is your challenge. If you can kind of go into yourself, it gives you that space to get that perspective and view it from a different vantage point and get the solution that you need to move through.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love the focus. I love the fact that we're talking about the internal journey. And I love the fact that we're talking about the definition of words. If you're listening to this right now and you're getting wrapped around the axle of these words and the definitions, go take a look at what Congress does. The first, I don't know, however many pages of every bill they write, they specify the definitions that they're using of the words that they're using in that bill. They want to make sure that you understand how they're defining that as they're putting it towards a framework to better this country, because the definition matters. And if your definition of whatever the term is that comes out and you are not on the same page, you're going to have a problem. It's either going to be a big problem or a little problem. It's still going to be a problem. You have to really understand the words that we're using so you can understand the meaning and the intent. And so many people just jump to conclusions instead of just assuming that it was an honest mistake. Like, I have to fess up, I messed up the recording of this thing as you're listening to it right now. Aaron signed up for next week. It didn't show up on my calendar for today. I didn't know why. I didn't look that it was obviously scheduled for a week from now. So I manually entered it in there. Like, somehow the process didn't work. And Carol and Aaron did me the honor of showing up anyway, because I messed it up and we just went ahead and went with it, because everything
Go with the
happens
flow
for us. And you show up and flow through what it is that you do, regardless of the mistake that was made. The mistake is the good stuff in life. It's the weird things that happen.
But Travis, is it really a mistake?
No.
Think about it.
That's a good question.
Right?
Is it a mistake?
Right.
Let's look at that word. Let's look at that word in an empowering sense. In the entertainment industry, it's called a mistake. And you want
look at that.
Because it allows you to gain more perspective and do another take to get your vision completely fulfilled. So you want take number 152, take number 1000. You want mistakes, right? So if you just separate that word and say it was a mistake, that means awesome. I have more info now, more variables. I get to do it again, right? And when you pair that with presence, like this is kind of funny too. I was reading on a few years ago on a Facebook, right? I was looking at Facebook and I liked somebody's post, so I want to see who they were. And I go to the top of their page and it says, they have a quote up there and it says, life doesn't give you second chances. It gives you an infinite amount of first chances.
Oh,
right?
I love
that's such
that.
an awesome statement, because it's about being present and mistakes. And then I'm like, Aaron Ellis. And I'm like, is that my quote? Did I say that? She's like, yeah, you said it on a webinar once. It was amazing. I'm like, I don't even remember saying that. That's really cool. But it was kind of funny that I got led to a quote that I was like, and it took me back. And I'm like, this is great. And I'm going all over the place with it in my mind. And then I read it again and I see my name under it. So it's funny, right? To me, that was funny. But when it comes down to it, it's just a mistake, which means we know different success laws. We know the one about keeping your vision and your strategy separate. You want the strategies to fail. You want to make mistakes or have mistakes so you can gather more information and more data and craft it differently and do it again and perfect it.
Yeah, there's, I love it when people say, I'm failing, and you're like, no, you're not failing. You're just finding out that didn't work, and you can just refine it till it does. people have this horrible misconception about that word failure. And really, you know, I'm always hey, fail fast, fail hard so that you don't have to do it again, you know, because in that you learn a hell of a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I know we've all done it.
It's the empowerment of a word is all in the meaning we give it.
Absolutely.
Jumbled letters from, well, at least in English, 26 letters that we choose a group of letters and we put air behind it. And again, it can be, think about like words like statements like I'm doing the best I can. Most people are like, I'm doing the best I can. Right. But ultimately, what if you said, I'm doing the best I can? Same words, but you're saying I'm being present. I am failing. I'm doing the best I can. Right. So it's not the words, it has totally different meaning. Now, the funniest way to really put this together, to realize what I'm talking about, go tell your dog that they're horrible. You're such a bad doggy.
Oh my God. Their tails are wagging.
Our brains are the same way. Our subconscious mind works the same way. It doesn't know the language. The neocortex knows the language. The limbic brain doesn't. Right. So you can, that's even a trick like that. I've worked with people. It's an NLP technique when they have constant loathing, self-loathing. If you just change the voice, if you plug your nose and say, I'm horrible, I'm such a bad person, the brain gets confused because it doesn't have the same essence going through the words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the word isn't final, right? So many people cringe when they hear the word no. But think back to when you were a teenager or a kid, or if you have teenagers or kids, and they come and ask you, and they're like, Mom, can I go to this party? There's going to be other adults there. It's going to be really cool. And you're like, no, not today. I can't do it. But Mom, what is this? Mom says, no, no, no. And by the end of the discussion, the kid got 1,000 no's to get to the one yes. Carol's delivering the kid to the party and she's driving home and she's like, how on earth did that kid talk me into a yes? I didn't want to do it. I was tired. I said no 100 times and I find myself just dropping the kid off. How in the hell did that happen?
With
no is not
with money.
final. No is not bad. No is just how the negotiation really starts. Right?
Yeah, it is.
No, you can't go. You got homework. Oh, no, Mom, I already got my homework done. Well, you can't go because of your chores aren't done. Actually, all my chores are done. And you're just working through all this stuff to turn it into a yes.
Also, they start to negotiate and wear you down. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't have a problem using it when we're a kid, but somehow when we turn to adults and we hear that word, it shocks us to our core. I can't believe I got no again. I can't believe I failed. Babe Ruth used to whistle on the way back to the dugout after every time he struck out. And his teammates ask him, like, why the hell are you whistling? He's like, just one more at bat till my next home run.
Lovely.
That's awesome.
Just one more strike. He was the strikeout king and the home run king.
Yeah.
He put every effort of himself into that at bat. And you're going to get one or the other. And he knows us. Every time he got one, he was one closer to the other. And he was right on with his life because that outcome had nothing to do with his intention.
Yeah.
His personal identity wasn't tied to the outcome. His personal identity was tied to the intention, which everyone can control. Everyone does have a say in what their intention is. Look, not a whole lot of people can control the outcome, right? You can put some kind of number into an equation and it should pop out the same every time, right? You know what the outcome is going to be, but you can't control it. You can only control the intent of what you put into the front end, into the input, into yourself. And that's the stuff that really matters anyway.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Aaron, tell us about a time where you were on tour and you met one of your idols.
So first, I've never had any idols. So
never had any idols.
No, never had any idols. And I've been around people like in the entertainment industry and stuff, I guess you could say famous people, if you want to put it that way, all my life to a degree. Right. But now with that being said, there's people that I like, always wanted to meet, but it wasn't out of idolizing them. It was just like, this is a cool dude. I want to get to know that guy. How did he do this kind of stuff? Right. So I think the time that comes to mind really kind of helped influence another facet of my life and another success area of my life, which was health and fitness. So this is late 90s Rock Never Stops tour. There's a band called Dawkins. There's a guitar player for Dawkins named George Lynch. He was all jacked up working out. Right. So he had a trailer behind the tour bus towing. I actually want to know how he got in shape, because I actually started to get into fitness. I had people, one of the guys in my band was in really good shape. So I started to work out, which led me to this tour with George Lynch. And he was just jacked and ripped. Right. And there he's towing a gym, literally a gym equipment. All the roadies would either put in the parking lot of the hotel or the venue. And I started working out with this guy in 97. Right. So I wanted to meet him because I always thought he was an incredible guitar player. Right. And I wanted to meet him because in that phase of my life, I was getting into health and fitness. Right. So I wanted to meet him, and it just kind of all coordinated and synchronistically came together where I'm sitting there in parking lots and venues, lifting weights out in the middle of, any city or state that we were in. So that was a really, really fun, great memory. The other one that comes to mind is, and it's all from synchronicity, right? It's all from synchronicity. I went to, and I got to tell that whole story because I think we've talked about that so much. I think it's important that people hear this as much as they can so they can start looking for it. I was a little bit stressed in life, and Maui was my go-to. I went to Maui like 13 times in 1 year. I would just in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., book a trip to Maui. Right. So one of those times I went, I was just exploring more things. I had studied so many things. I'd studied astrology and I'd studied numerology and all these different schools of thought, which I did to learn more about myself. Like, why do I do the things I do? So I studied what does a Taurus do, right? Which I'm not stubborn, I'm tenacious. Just keep that in mind. So
it's the words, the words you use.
I'm not going to agree that I'm stubborn, and I will be tenacious in telling you that I'm not stubborn. Okay, anyway, so I was in Maui and I go to this metaphysical bookstore, they had crystals and stuff. But the reason I went is they had a sensory deprivation tank. I don't know if you've ever done that, but you go in this tank where it's pitch dark. You can't see anything, can't hear anything. And it's like thousands of pounds of sodium in the water. So you're actually floating. Like you don't feel anything. It's crazy. It was so cool. I get out and I am just standing at the front, and there's this magazine, like a local magazine. And I start thumbing through it. And I see that Ram Dass, who I'd read Be Here Now from the books from the 70s, was speaking at this Unity church the next day. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go check out Ram Dass that day, right? Now, prior to, I'd read a lot of Wayne Dyer's books, okay? But I see Ram Dass, and so I go in and I sit down at sit down in this little church room, the Unity Church in Maui, and I'm waiting for Ram Dass to come in, and some guy comes up, he's like, dude, and I'm just fixated, like, oh, what's Ram Dass, right? Is the seat taken? Sure. No, it's not. You can sit there. And I'm sitting there for a little bit, and I hear a couple laughs, and I hear a couple things, and out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, it's freaking Wayne Dyer sitting right next to me, right? It's Wayne Dyer, right? So afterwards, I pulled him aside, said, hey, I'd love to talk to you. I'm going through some things, trying to connect some more dots in my life. I've read these books that you've done and stuff. And he's like, well, hey, I'll tell you what are you doing? We're going to lunch. And I went to lunch with him and Eckhart Tolle and Ram Dass that day. And that was back in 2006, end of 2006, end of 7. And I was friends with him up until his death and mentored by him and like hung out with him. He had his writing space at Kanapali Ollie, which was right next to the Westin. So not only did I see him at that church, but I found out I was staying at the Westin. He was right next door at the Kanapali Ollie, right? So and I think I talked about this at the last time you guys both, at least Carol, you saw me speak recently. Yeah. I talked about Wayne Dyer helping me kind of integrate and understand life and how to communicate. He taught me how to connect those kind of dots, because I've always been kind of like, I've always understood that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, as you could say, right? And I've been told, like, I remember him telling me, like, Aaron, you live in the depths and you take brief visits to the surface, where most people live at the surface and take brief visits to the depths. So he helped me really integrate my being, you could say, my physical, my body and my spirit over a handful of years. So, but it wasn't like, that's where the words, you're going to have to remember, my little brain is like idol. I have everything from studying religions and gold idols and all this stuff. And then American Idol popped into my head. All these things rushed in my head.
You're welcome.
So I may have just explained, and those could maybe from some definition, you could say those were my idols. but they were just people I, wanted to meet and synchronistically met and stuff.
Yeah, it's people that you admire and think are cool. I think the way a lot of Americans use idol, I feel like that's how I tried to use it. It's just someone that you really admire. Like growing up, you're kind of your sports hero, right? They're not a hero, right? They're not saving babies or whatever the thing is, right? They're not like fighting crime. Like I grew up in northern Minnesota, and when I was pretty young, the Minnesota Twins were a formidable team. They won a World Series in '87 and '91, and Kirby Puckett was like always on my list. In fact, he was so popular that McDonald's had these called puck packs for Kirby Puckett, and there was like you get like a little mini helmet, and you get like a sundae, like a hot fudge sundae in the thing, right?
Oh,
like
yeah,
that was the
those.
thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Those at Dairy Queen too. They had them at Dairy Queen too by our house.
Yes,
All the
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm lactose intolerant. This is lost on me.
No, I am too. I just it doesn't bother me. I don't care, right? like I'm having cereal this morning. I'm like, yeah, that's gonna hurt later.
Yeah.
Didn't stop me. Like,
oh no. Mine's not good. We do not touch milk whatsoever. Anything dairy is not a thing. So when you start talking about Sundays and stuff, I'm like checking out.
Remind me, Aaron. We'll spike her. We'll spike her coffee with some milk.
Yeah, it makes my throat all.
Oh yeah, let me. Yeah, that's why I do like soy and almond milk. Yeah. Sidebar. Go ahead. Finish your story.
So we get to the '91 World Series, right? And it gets to Game 6, and Kirby Puckett he goes into the locker room and he's telling the guys, he's like, "Look, I haven't really shown up for you all. Like his name was not, and like it wasn't high on the stat line, it wasn't high on the defense count. Like he wasn't showing up as himself." And he's like, "Here it is. We're gonna do this. We're gonna come back and win this thing." Both the '87-'91 series, that each team won the home game, and it just so happens that the Twins were the home team for the series. So they had the extra game at home and they won both series. But in Game 6 and in Game 7 of the World Series in '91, he went just flat out off the rails, had amazing catches, was hitting home runs, everything that he was really there to do. And don't we find that within ourselves every now and again? I know our friend Dan talks about this. Like, you're going to go on a vacation, and 3 hours from now, you can get 3 weeks worth of work done in that 3 hours because of what's coming. We have this extra gear within ourselves, and we don't feel like we can always operate that way. For some reason, we tell ourselves that that's only for like special times where we can just unleash and flat out just do whatever the thing is. How do you access that part of yourself?
I can talk to that one, man. I love this topic, Travis. So, and this has been honestly one of my biggest lessons of integration over the past year of my life. So this is awesome that you're bringing this up. It's so present day for me, right? So I fully understand and have lived the fact that we don't do things when we want to, rarely when we need to, but when we have to, we do. And we're just that way, right? No matter how much I try to discipline myself or plan, if I can just get to have to, I'm going to do it. So now since I really learned that from some of the people that we associate with for the last 4 or 5 years, I've really sought the have tos. That's been my strategy to get myself to do something. How can I create a have to around this? Right? So I seek that. So one of the things that has been programmed in my subconscious for about 20 years is, first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning is, where am I not yet free? Bring it on. So I'm seeking out anywhere I don't have internal freedom in my life. And a few weeks ago, somebody's like, "How do you have no resistance in your life?" I'm like, "Well, because I meet resistance with zero resistance. I look for resistance. I don't resist resistance." Right? So with that, and it's cool to understand this and how to integrate and really honor other people in your life, because that's been a big thing for me this past year. So the way this went for me was I had said, I'm a recovering, as you guys will understand. Maybe I shouldn't say this on this because there's a whole story behind this, but I'm a recovering giving too much to other people person, right? Which we know in a certain law creates a certain kind of person and a certain kind of dynamic, right? So with that, I would say too much yes to too many things and all that kind of stuff. And I would triple book myself. Like, that's just because I shouldn't be in control of my schedule. So I've learned that's not my way. Right? That's not my weakness. Is my strength becomes when I give my schedule to my wife and she manages it. So because of that way of looking at things, because I look at life from a place of preference, meaning I do not see anything worse or better than anything else, or I can see the context of it, but I also see the whole. right? So I can say, yeah, if Travis, if you want to go somewhere that's east of your house and you start driving west, you might get there, but it would probably be better if you would just go to the direction you wanted to go, right? So I can see the contextual good, bad, right, or wrong, but as a whole, as an internal essence of myself, I just don't have it. So the way that played out is one of our mutual friends came to me in April, very end of April, and said, Aaron, I need to talk to you. I'm like, okay. It's like, what? It's like, I see what you're doing. You know, we've talked about this before. You've asked me to call you out when this happens, when you're doing too many things, you're saying yes to many things, you're spread too thin, you're sacrificing your health, all these kind of things, right? He's like, if you don't slow down, you're going to have a heart attack, right? So I listened and said, thank you for sharing. But when I got off the phone, literally my reaction was like, genius. That's it. Now, it took me till May 16th to manifest my heart attack, but that was my have to. To me, it was no different than, Aaron, you need to take a course on time management. Well, that would be nice. I think I'd like to do that. Probably need to do that, but it's not a have to. So for me, consciously, purposely choosing to have a heart attack was my have to. And I don't look at that any differently. But what I learned from that is just because I understand life at that level doesn't mean the people closest to me in my life do. And when I want to also honor their path and where they're at, was it easy for my wife? No, obviously not. You know what I mean? But I can still be true to who I am. I don't need to, it wasn't like, well, that's too bad. If I'm going to have a heart attack, she's just going to have to deal with it because I need to be true to myself to be able to have a heart attack. It wasn't like that. It was actually an eye-opening thing for me. I got massively on schedule. I do 5 hours of self-care from 5 to 10 a.m. every day. And all these things happen, right? But that was this whole slew of lessons for me that helped me further integrate how I am in the world in relation to other people and how to still help them along the way. Does that make sense? Because like, to me, it totally makes sense. What's wrong with a heart attack? It's going to create more of a have to than me looking for a course online, how to time manage myself. It's not going to happen. Right. So with that, you know, it's the last year has been a lesson of learning that. And it's been a lesson of, you could say, from other people's perspectives, cleaning up messes. To me, they weren't messes. They're learning experiences. And due to that the whole creating, you know, the whole exchange, we talked about that success law. I also had some partial exchanges, right? So there was certain people that I interacted with that basically we created an exchange together, and I don't feel I lived up to that end of it. So I changed the dynamic. I changed the dynamic of it and said, hey, let's do this instead, because I don't feel like I fulfilled what I said. It became a partial, right? So, but the beauty of that is I was able to do what I normally do. And I did that. And I chose, yes, I chose an extreme measure, right? I choose a crazy have to that most people wouldn't think was a good choice. To me, it was a great choice. It did everything I needed it to do with my schedule, my health, my personal self-care, my meditation, all that stuff. But it also brought me closer to understanding other people. And it helped me solidify relationships and further understand other people and how I approach life, how it affects other people. So that I can't even remember what you said that spurred that whole thing, Travis, but it literally lit up like, ooh, this is awesome. I don't even, how do we do that? How do we
it was a fantastic explanation. The question was, how do you unleash that power within you? And you talked about moving the want to, the must to the have tos when you have to get it done. And before we hit record here, I was chatting with Carol a little bit, and I said to her that I haven't really done a whole lot of just anything in February. And she's like, oh, super jealous, right? For her, she really feels like she needs to give herself a break. For me, someone that's kind of been bent on achievement, I've been feeling worthless the whole month because I haven't done a lot of stuff, right? So because I'm geared for whatever reason to be an achiever and to get, I don't know, like the award hanging on my wall, like that means something. It's just a piece of, wood with varnish and some coloring. I got a second one I'm holding right. Like it's just wood, right? It's the gold star. I've been collecting these gold stars my whole life. Like somehow that I'm not worth anything unless I'm pursuing and attaining these gold stars that have no special meaning. Like having this thing doesn't like give me a superpower. It's like, oh, now I can, fly, or now, now I can do, like, there's no special ability attached to that. But because I'm so driven, the same thing of having really not a lot to do in February had a much different effect on both Carol and myself, a much drastically different effect on what it is. And the same with the same water that boils the egg to make it hard, it makes the potato soft, right?
Yeah.
You spoke about it earlier, the story that we tell themselves when you get fired up and amped up right before you go on stage, you can tell yourself that's excitement, or you can tell yourself that's anxiety. It's the same exact feeling. It's the same everything firing, but the story you tell yourself about the thing matters far more than the thing itself. Far more than the thing itself. And too many people put too much energy and emotion to things that don't make a bit of difference. This is a pen, but it's not the pen I wanted. You want to see some kid that's really attached to that thing? Bring the kid a cup that's not their cup. Oh my God. Oh my
Trust me, I know
God.
that my
This is
8-year-old
not
and
my
3-year-old
cup.
will-
I will not
both-
drink out of the pink one, only the teal one. Whatever the thing is. Parents know this without a doubt and beg and plead with these micro-humans to give them the cup of choice so they can get peace of mind. But isn't it so interesting how so many people view the same event, the same circumstance, the same thing in a completely different way?
Yeah.
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 Well, but I said
100%.
I was jealous because I am busy, but I get to do everything I love. So
Right.
that's the only difference. I would like some time off, but I'll make time when it's due. I'll make
When it's a
time.
have to, right? When
I
your
don't
body
really.
breaks down and says,
Yeah,
you don't go to
no.
sleep, I'm gonna put you to sleep. Like some
Yeah.
shit your
Yeah.
dad would threaten you with, right?
Oh, there you go. Let's threaten ourselves.
Well, it works. It works. He knew that getting the heart attack, Aaron knew this, that it would force him into a whole different slew of have tos, because it
Yeah.
would be really, it's different than a doctor threatening, like, if you don't make some changes, like, you're gonna have a heart attack. And that's supposed to be the fear. For Aaron, that was like, that is the thing that I need for a catalyst for all these things in my life. We talk about this stuff all the time in the group that we're in. What makes real long and lasting change? It's either we have to reprogram ourselves, which can take a long time and it is effective, or you could have so much emotion forced into a single moment in time that decision is enough to catapult you into that whole new world that you want
And reprogram you.
Mhm.
and reprogram you in an instant instead of over time. Both work.
Yeah.
One is violently effective.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron, as
Right.
we're getting ready to come to a close here, this has just been a phenomenal discussion about all different rabbit holes that we tend to go down as people, and how we think and reveal and uncover. What advice would you have for someone that is maybe struggling with who they are, and trying to get to the internal journey to make themselves more of who they are?
Step into the struggle. Like literally seek within yourself, learn about yourself, any way that arises. Ask people, meaning you could ask people for what should I study? What book should I read? Or you could walk into a bookstore like I used to and something falls off the shelf and that's the next book you read, just literally step into insight into yourself. That's constantly, consistently. And this goes to leadership, like in the whole destination thinking, the virus or infection. People think that being a leader is something to aspire to and become, but ultimately we're all leaders to where we've led ourselves so far. And leadership is and always only is leading ourselves. Ultimately, when we understand too, that people don't do what we tell them to do unless it's completely congruent with what we're saying and what we're thinking as well. So insight into self is always my go-to, my first, final, second, third, fifth, 100th suggestion and encouragement to people.
Yeah, there's not some magical thing outside your house that's going to make you fulfilled.
No.
There's not some magical relationship. It's not some magical stock market ticker for the day that's going to make you feel more fulfilled. If you are completely empty on the inside and you win the lottery, you're going to be empty inside. You're going to be able to afford more pizzas or a fancy car. But as soon as that money's gone, you're still in the same place. You're still the same person. It doesn't matter what that external thing is if you're not taking care of you. And then, Aaron, how do you want people to get a hold of you if they want to reach out?
And all my social media is Aaron Ellis Official. So whether it's LinkedIn or my website is aaronellisofficial.com, they can reach out to me there. They can message me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on any of the platforms, whatever their favorite one is. I'm happy to engage with them there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Aaron. We appreciate this deep dive into self today.
That's all for this episode of Titan Evolution Podcast. We hope this no-holds-barred conversation opened your eyes on what it takes to live a genuinely happy life according to your own terms. Now that you've treated yourself to such a refreshing discussion, you cannot listen to nonsense content anymore. Be sure not to miss an episode by subscribing to the show at TitanEvolutionPodcast.com. Don't forget to share the word so more people can be enlightened, informed, and entertained. Thank you for listening.